Vanishing point. The ocean always calmed Mira Patel. After 3 weeks studying coral restoration off the coast of Thailand, she expected to return to the comfort of her husband's embrace. Instead, she came home to silence. "Ethan?" she called, wheeling her luggage into their apartment. No response. The stillness felt unnatural, like holding her breath underwater too long. She found his note on their bedroom dresser next to the framed photo from their wedding day. 2 years of marriage reduced to 5 words. "I can't do this anymore." Mira sat on the edge of the bed, the paper trembling in her hands. No explanation, no goodbye, just emptiness where her life with Ethan should be. She called him immediately. Straight to voicemail. She texted, emailed, even messaged his sister, Layla. Nothing. The man who had whispered promises against her skin, who had mapped out their future together over Sunday morning coffee, had simply vanished. "This isn't like him," Mira told her colleague Julian Santos 3 days later in the university lab where they both worked. "Something must have happened." Julian's dark eyes reflected genuine concern. "People sometimes break in unexpected ways," he said gently, passing her a mug of tea. "Did he seem different before you left?" Mira closed her eyes, searching her memory. There had been something in the weeks before her trip, a distraction in Ethan's gaze, a slight withdrawal. She'd attributed it to stress from his architectural firm's latest project. "He was working late a lot," she admitted. "But we were fine. At least I thought we were." That evening, she went through their apartment methodically. Ethan's clothes were gone, along with his passport, laptop, and the vintage watch his grandfather had left him. He'd taken his personal items but left behind all their shared memories: photo albums, wedding gifts, the collection of seashells they'd gathered from beaches around the world. She found his wedding ring in the bathroom drawer, nestled in a small velvet pouch. A week passed. Mira functioned on autopilot, splitting her time between the marine biology lab and desperate attempts to locate her husband. She filed a missing person report, though the police seemed unconvinced after seeing Ethan's note. "Classic walkaway spouse," the officer had said with a shrug. "We see it all the time." But Mira knew Ethan better than that. Or thought she did. It was Julian who suggested she check their joint accounts. "You need to protect yourself," he insisted over lunch in the university cafeteria. "Whatever's happening, you can't just wait indefinitely." The bank statements revealed the first real clue. 3 months of regular transfers to an account she didn't recognize. Small amounts, never enough to draw attention, but they totaled over $5,000. That night, Mira found herself scrolling through Ethan's social media, something she rarely did. They'd always been private people, more focused on experiencing life than documenting it. On his rarely used Instagram, she noticed a new follow, Olivia Chen. The profile showed a striking woman with a waterfall of dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold secrets. She looked vaguely familiar. Mira's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meet me tomorrow. We need to talk about Ethan." The message included an address to a cafe across town. No name, no explanation. Just like Ethan's note, it left Mira with more questions than answers. Sleep evaded her that night. Instead, she lay awake, tracing the empty space beside her, wondering if she'd ever really known the man who once filled it. Tomorrow, perhaps, she would begin to understand why the love she thought was unshakable had simply disappeared without a trace. Ripple effects. The cafe was tucked between a bookstore and a vintage record shop, its interior warm with honey-colored wood and the rich scent of coffee. Mira arrived 15 minutes early, claiming a corner table that offered both privacy and a view of the entrance. When Olivia Chen walked in, recognition flickered through Mira. She'd seen her before, at Ethan's firm's holiday party last year. Ethan had introduced her as a landscape architect they sometimes collaborated with. Nothing more. "Thank you for coming," Olivia said, sliding into the seat across from Mira. Her voice was steady, but her fingers fidgeted with her sleeve. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm not sure why I did," Mira admitted. "Except that my husband disappeared 2 weeks ago, and you might know something about it." Olivia's eyes, deep amber, observant, studied Mira's face. "I didn't know he was married when we first met," she began. "3 years ago at a conference in Seattle. We had a weekend. Then I discovered he had a fiancée back home." The timeline hit Mira like a physical blow. 3 years ago, she and Ethan had been planning their wedding. "After that, I kept my distance," Olivia continued. "Until 6 months ago, when he contacted me about a sustainable building project. He said things with you were—" She hesitated. "Complicated." "They weren't," Mira said, her voice surprisingly calm despite the storm inside her. "At least not for me. There's more." Olivia reached for her phone, scrolled through it, and placed it face up on the table. The screen showed a photo of a little boy, perhaps 4 years old, with Ethan's distinctive hazel eyes and dimpled smile. "Noah," Olivia said softly. "He's Ethan's son." The world seemed to tilt beneath Mira. A child. A secret child from a weekend affair that predated their marriage. Something Ethan had never confessed, even as they'd discussed starting their own family someday. "Did he know? About Noah?" Mira managed to ask. "Not until recently. I never told him. But 6 months ago, Noah needed medical treatment. Nothing serious, but they needed family medical history. I reached out to Ethan then." The timeline aligned with the changes Mira had sensed in her husband. The late nights. The distraction. The beginning of his withdrawal. "He's been sending money," Mira said, the bank transfers suddenly making sense. Olivia nodded. "He wanted to be part of Noah's life. We were figuring out how that might work." She paused, looking down. "Then 3 weeks ago, he told me he was going to tell you everything. That he couldn't live with the deception anymore." The timing aligned perfectly with Mira's departure for Thailand. Had he waited until she was gone to avoid the confrontation? Or had he lost his courage in her absence? "Do you know where he is now?" Mira asked. "No," Olivia said. "He was supposed to meet us last weekend. Noah was excited to go to the aquarium with him. But Ethan never showed up. His phone is disconnected. I'm worried something happened." As Mira left the cafe, her mind raced with questions. She barely noticed the spring rain until Julian called out to her from beneath the awning of the record shop next door. "Mira, what are you doing here?" She looked up, surprised to find her colleague there, a vinyl record tucked under his arm. "Julian, The words caught in her throat. How could she explain? But something in her expression must have told him enough. "Hey, come on. Let's get you somewhere dry." He guided her to his car, and they sat in silence as rain drummed on the roof. "Want to talk about it?" he asked gently. The dam broke. Words poured out of her. Ethan's disappearance, the affair, the child, the betrayal layered upon betrayal. Julian listened without interruption, his presence steady as the storm inside her raged. "I keep thinking I should have known," she finished, wiping away tears. "How did I miss something this huge?" "Because you trusted him," Julian said. "That's not your failure, Mira. It's his." On the drive back to her apartment, Julian shared stories from his own life, his parents' messy divorce, the lessons he'd learned about honesty and trust. It was the first time she'd really seen beneath his professional demeanor, glimpsing the experiences that had shaped him. "What now?" he asked as he pulled up outside her building. Mira stared through the rain-streaked window. "I need to find out where Ethan went. Not for us, there is no us anymore. But something doesn't add up." That evening, she searched through Ethan's remaining belongings with new purpose. In the back of his desk drawer, she found a business card for a private investigator. On the back, handwritten numbers, coordinates. Mira plugged them into her phone's map app. They pointed to a remote location in Oregon near the coast. She texted Olivia. "Has Ethan ever mentioned anything about Oregon?" The response came quickly. "His uncle has a cabin there. Ethan talked about it being his sanctuary when life got overwhelming." A sanctuary, or a hiding place. Mira booked a flight for the following day. Whatever truth awaited in Oregon, she was finally ready to face it. Beneath the surface. The rental car struggled on the narrow dirt road leading to the coordinates. Pine trees crowded close on either side, their branches scraping against the windows like fingernails. After nearly an hour of driving from the small coastal airport, Mira spotted a cabin nestled among the trees, weathered cedar with a stone chimney, smoke curling from it despite the mild spring day. Ethan's silver Audi was parked in front, confirming what she already knew. He was here. Mira sat in her car for several minutes, gathering her courage. What would she say to the man who had shared her bed, her dreams, her life, and then abandoned them all without explanation? The anger that had sustained her during the flight now mingled with something else. Curiosity, perhaps even pity. Finally, she approached the cabin and knocked. No answer. She tried the door, unlocked. The interior was dim, smelling of wood smoke and coffee. A laptop sat open on a rough-hewn table surrounded by papers. "Ethan?" she called. Movement from the back porch. Through the window, she saw him. Her husband, wrapped in a blanket despite the mild temperature, staring out at the ocean view. He turned at her voice, his face registering shock. "Mira," he whispered. "How did you find you?" It wasn't that hard in the end. She remained in the doorway, maintaining her distance. Harder to understand why you left the way you did. Ethan looked different, gaunt, with several days' stubble and dark circles under his eyes. He moved slowly as he came inside, as if each step required deliberation. "I couldn't face you," he said, his voice rough. "After everything, I couldn't look you in the eye and tell you what I'd done." "So you wrote a 5-word note and disappeared? After 3 years together?" The hurt in her voice was unmistakable. He flinched. "I know it was cowardly. I thought it would be easier for both of us if I just went away." "Easier?" Mira laughed without humor. "I thought you were dead, Ethan, or having some kind of breakdown." "I filed a missing person report." He looked genuinely surprised by this. "I'm sorry. I didn't think. That's obvious." She moved to the table, glancing at the papers scattered there. "Medical documents. Test results." Her anger faltered. "What is all this?" Ethan sat heavily in a chair, the blanket still wrapped around his shoulders. "After I found out about Noah, I got tested. For everything. Including genetic markers." He pushed a paper toward her. "I have Lynch syndrome. It's a genetic condition that dramatically increases cancer risk." Mira, with her scientific background, understood immediately. "That's why you've been acting strange. You're sick. Stage 3 colon cancer, diagnosed a month ago." He met her eyes for the first time. Aggressive. "The prognosis isn't good." The revelation knocked the wind from her sails. She sat across from him, trying to process this new layer of complexity. "So you found out you had a son, then found out you might not live to see him grow up," she summarized, her analytical mind working through the timeline. "And instead of letting me help you through this, you ran away." "I couldn't burden you with this, Mira. We were talking about starting our own family. And suddenly I had a child I never knew about, and a genetic condition that could be passed down, and cancer." He trailed off. "It was too much. I thought I was protecting you." "That wasn't your choice to make," she said firmly. "I'm your wife. For better or worse, remember?" "I remember," he said softly. "But Noah complicated everything. I've been trying to figure out how to be there for him, how to set up provisions for his future, how to tell him the truth about who I am before—" He stopped. "Before it's too late." Mira studied the man she had married, now both familiar and a stranger. "Does Olivia know about your diagnosis?" He shook his head. "I haven't told anyone except my doctors. And now you." "She's worried about you?" "Noah was looking forward to your trip to the aquarium." Guilt flashed across Ethan's face. "I couldn't do it. Seeing him, knowing I might not be there for him." He gestured helplessly. "I panicked. Came here to think. To figure out what to do." Mira stood, moved to the window. Outside, the Pacific stretched endlessly, waves crashing against the rocky shore below the cabin. She felt a strange calmness washing over her, like the moment in a dive when equilibrium is reached and breathing becomes natural again. "You should have trusted me with the truth," she said finally. "All of it. I deserved that much." "I know," his voice broke. "I've made so many mistakes, Mira, I don't know how to fix any of them." She turned back to him, her decision made. "Start by calling Olivia. Tell her where you are and what's happening." She and Noah deserve to know. She picked up her purse. And I'll contact your oncologist in the city. There are clinical trials, new treatments. This doesn't have to be the end. What about us? He asked, vulnerability naked on his face. Mira paused at the door. I don't know yet. But running away never solved anything. It's time to face the truth, all of it, together or apart. But honestly, as she walked back to her car, the weight that had pressed on her chest since finding Ethan's note began to lift. The path forward wasn't clear, but at least now she could see beyond the vanishing point. Weathering the storm, Mira stood at the window of her university office, watching raindrops chase each other down the glass. Spring in Seattle meant renewal, but also storms, much like the emotional tempest she'd been navigating for the past 2 months. Dr. Lee wants to see those coral samples by Thursday, Julian said, entering with 2 cups of coffee. He'd taken to bringing her favorite, dark roast with a splash of almond milk, almost daily since her return from Oregon. Already processed them, Mira replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. And the preliminary data looks promising. Julian leaned against her desk, his presence comfortable in a way few things were these days. How was yesterday's appointment? Yesterday. Ethan's first immunotherapy treatment after surgery. Mira had driven him there, sat beside him as the drugs dripped into his veins and taken him back to what was once their shared apartment. Now just his, while she stayed in a sublet closer to campus. Exhausting, she admitted, but the oncologist is cautiously optimistic. What she didn't say was how strange it felt, being there for Ethan while simultaneously disentangling herself from him, supporting him through cancer treatment while processing the collapse of their marriage. The betrayal still stung, but she couldn't abandon him to face this alone. You're doing more than most would, Julian observed, his voice free of judgment. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just postponing the inevitable, Mira confessed. Setting myself up for more pain. Julian's eyes, dark and thoughtful, held hers. Or maybe you're just being true to who you are. Compassionate, even when it's difficult. The way he looked at her sometimes made Mira feel transparent, as if he could see past her professional exterior to the confusion beneath. It was both unsettling and comforting. That evening, she met Olivia for coffee, an arrangement that would have seemed impossible weeks earlier, but had somehow become a lifeline for both women. They sat at what was becoming their regular table, watching Noah play with a toy submarine in a nearby children's area. Ethan told me about the immunotherapy, Olivia said, stirring her tea. Thank you for making him go. He listens to you. He's scared, Mira replied. We all are. They had formed an unlikely alliance. The wife, the former lover, united by concern for a man who had hurt them both, and by love for a child who deserved better than the chaos adults created. Noah asks about him, Olivia said softly. After the aquarium trip, he's decided Ethan is his favorite person. Keeps the seahorse toy Ethan bought him right by his bed. The mention of the aquarium visit, which Mira had insisted Ethan follow through on, brought a bittersweet pang. She'd helped orchestrate a perfect day for a family that didn't include her. Have you thought more about Ethan's suggestion? Olivia asked. About all of us talking to Noah together. Ethan wanted to formally acknowledge his paternity to Noah, to give the boy the truth before the disease potentially took away the chance. He'd asked both women to be present, a united front in an impossible situation. I'll be there, Mira said. Noah deserves honesty. We all do. Later that night, alone in her temporary apartment, Mira allowed herself to feel the full weight of grief, not just for her marriage, but for the future she'd envisioned. Children of her own, growing old with someone who cherished her completely. She curled on the couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, and let the tears come. For the first time, she truly mourned what she had lost, and what had never been real to begin with. Her phone buzzed. Julian. Just checking if you need anything, his text read. I'm at the grocery store. Such a simple offer, but it unraveled her completely. When had anyone last thought of her needs first? Just company, she typed back, surprising herself with her honesty. 30 minutes later, he arrived with a grocery bag containing ice cream, a bottle of wine, and ingredients for a quick pasta dish. They cooked together in her tiny kitchen, talking about work, about the documentary series they'd both been watching, about everything except Ethan. "You don't have to be strong all the time," Julian said later as they sat on her balcony, the city lights glimmering through the drizzle. "No one could handle all this without breaking a little." "I feel like I've been underwater for months," Mira admitted. "Just now learning how to breathe again." Julian's hand found hers in the darkness. Just a touch, gentle. She looked at their intertwined fingers, noticing how naturally they fit together, not with the passionate intensity she'd had with Ethan, but with something quieter, steadier. "I'm not ready," she whispered. "For whatever this might be." "I know," he said simply. "I'm not asking for anything. Just letting you know I'm here." When he left that night, Mira felt something shift within her, not healing exactly, but the beginning of possibility. Like the first coral polyp reattaching to a damaged reef, tentative but resilient. The next day, she sat in a child psychologist's office with Ethan, Olivia, and Noah. The room was filled with toys and bright colors, but the conversation was perhaps the most adult one Mira had ever participated in. With the psychologist's guidance, they explained to Noah in age-appropriate terms that Ethan was his biological father. Watching the child process this information, confusion giving way to curiosity, then a simple acceptance that only the very young can manage, Mira felt a strange pride in all of them. They were creating something unusual but valuable, honesty in the midst of complication. "Are you my mommy's friend?" Noah asked Mira afterward in the parking lot. Mira knelt to his level. "I am. And I'd like to be your friend too, if that's okay." The boy considered this seriously, then nodded. "Do you like seahorses too?" "I study the ocean," she told him. "So I know lots about seahorses." His face lit up. "Can you tell me about them sometime?" "I'd like that very much," she said, meaning it completely. As she drove home alone, Mira realized she was navigating through the storm rather than merely being battered by it. The pain hadn't disappeared, but somehow she was finding a way forward through the wreckage of what had been. Part 5. New Horizons. Autumn painted the Pacific Northwest in amber and crimson. Mira stood on the deck of the research vessel, clipboard in hand, documenting the day's findings. 6 months had passed since that rainy day when she'd discovered Ethan's note. 6 months that had reshaped her understanding of love, forgiveness, and her own resilience. "Final samples logged," Julian called, securing the last specimen container. His smile, warm and familiar, sent a pleasant flutter through her chest, a sensation she'd stopped fighting somewhere around the 3rd month of their weekly dinner non-dates. "Perfect timing," she replied, checking her watch. "We can make it back before Noah's birthday party starts." The celebration would be held at the aquarium where Mira now volunteered monthly, leading educational programs for children. Noah, now 5, had developed a fascination with marine biology that delighted both Mira and Julian, who had become a steady presence in the unusual extended family they'd formed. Ethan's cancer was in remission, a near miracle according to his doctors. The aggressive treatment had worked, though recovery remained a daily battle. He'd moved to a small house near Olivia and Noah, committed to being present for his son while maintaining the fragile friendship he and Mira had salvaged from their marriage's ruins. Their divorce had been finalized 3 months earlier, a quiet, almost ceremonial acknowledgement that what had broken could not be repaired, but could be respectfully laid to rest. "Do you ever regret it?" Julian asked as they navigated back to shore, the autumn sun setting the water ablaze with golden light. "Staying involved with them after everything?" Mira considered the question. "I regret the circumstances," she said finally, "but not the connections. Noah's brought unexpected joy into my life, and seeing Ethan take responsibility, really commit to being a father, there's a certain closure in that." Julian nodded, understanding as always. It was one of the things she treasured most about him, his ability to accept complexity without trying to simplify it. Later, Surrounded by excited children at the aquarium's touch pool, Mira watched Noah proudly introduce Julian to his friends as my ocean scientist. Friend. The boy had developed an adorable habit of collecting special people, unbound by conventional family. Structures. He's thriving, Olivia said, appearing beside Mira with plates of birthday cake. Thanks in large part to you. We all did this, Mira corrected her. By choosing honesty? Eventually. The two women had developed a friendship that still occasionally surprised them both, built on mutual respect and the shared experience of loving and losing the same man. Across the room, Ethan sat on a bench, looking thinner but stronger than he had in months. He caught Mira's eye and raised his water glass slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, perhaps even gratitude. After the party, Julian helped Mira load leftover decorations into her car. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same box, and neither pulled away. Move in with me, Julian said suddenly. Or I could move in with you. Or we could find a new place together. I want more than one evening a week and stolen moments between research trips. Mira looked at him, this man who had been patient and present through the most difficult chapter of her life, who had never pushed, never demanded, only offered steadiness when everything else was in flux. Are you sure? She asked. My life is complicated. It comes with connections to people most men wouldn't want around. Julian's laugh was genuine. Mira, I fell in love with you precisely because of how you've handled that complexity. With grace and kindness, even when it hurt. He took her hands in his. I'm not asking for simple. I'm asking for real. 2 months later, Mira stood in their new apartment. A bright space with windows overlooking the water and bookshelves filled with their combined collections of scientific journals and novels. Julian's jazz record sat beside her marine specimens, a visual representation of their intertwined lives. The doorbell rang. Noah burst in the moment she opened it, clutching a drawing of what appeared to be a family of octopuses. For your new home, he announced as Olivia followed with a houseplant and Ethan came last, carrying a small wrapped package. We won't stay long, Ethan assured them. Just wanted to welcome you properly. There was an ease between them now that had seemed impossible a year ago. Not friendship exactly, but a peaceful coexistence built on shared care for a child and the acknowledgement of a past that had shaped them all. After they left, Julian wrapped his arms around Mira from behind as they stood at the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of possibility. Happy? He murmured against her hair. Mira turned in his arms, studying the face that had become her favorite landscape, familiar yet always revealing new depths. I used to think happiness was the absence of pain, she said. Now I think it's the presence of truth. And yes, I'm very happy. Julian's kiss was gentle at first, then deepening with promise. Unlike the passionate beginning she'd had with Ethan, their love had developed in reverse, starting with profound understanding and building slowly toward desire. That night, in their new bed, Mira traced the contours of Julian's face in the moonlight filtering through unfamiliar curtains. His hands moved over her skin with reverence, each touch an affirmation. Their bodies came together without urgency, but with complete presence, a physical expression of the emotional intimacy they'd built so carefully. I love you, she whispered against his shoulder, the words no longer frightening. I know, he replied, his smile evident even in the darkness. I've been showing up every day, just waiting for you to notice. In the morning, they would return to their research, to the ocean that had always been Mira's first love. They would continue building this unconventional life they'd chosen, one that included a child who wasn't hers, an ex-husband who was finding his own path to redemption, and a love that had grown not from dramatic passion, but from consistent presence. As she drifted toward sleep in Julian's arms, Mira thought about the mysterious ways healing happened, not through forgetting the past, but by allowing it to become part of a larger story. The painful chapter that had begun with Ethan's disappearance had somehow led her here, to this moment of genuine contentment. Sometimes love didn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it grew quietly in the spaces left by storms. taking root in the fertile ground of shared understanding and gentle persistence. Sometimes, Mira now knew the truest love was the one that simply showed up, day after day, without fanfare but with absolute reliability. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.